You've talked about Agenda 2063. It is not new. It is the new name for the Lagos Plan of Action of 1980. We in the continent of Africa, as others have said, are in the business of giving new name to old things, assuming that that will solve our problems. What young people must do is to understand Africa, because you cannot solve that which you do not understand. And I've had the advantage of talking to very many young people since yesterday, from different countries, some countries with conflict. I've talked to young people from Sudan, from Chad, from Cameroon. Those are conflict countries. Which then begs the question, if we want to change minds, how do we want to change minds? We are very quick to talk about artificial intelligence, and I normally ask, whose artificial intelligence? I was watching this morning the humanoid competitions in China, robots racing. And very quickly, I also watched people struggling for water in Chad, refugees. And yet when we are called upon to discuss these things, we issue statistics that this is what Africa is going to be. But I'm suggesting to this audience and to the young people that number one, we must understand what the problem is. In 1950-60, we said our problem was education. We talked about ignorance. We talked about poverty. We talked about disease. I'm talking to you at a point now when there is Ebola in Eastern Congo. Where has the vaccine come from? Europe. Do we know whether it is a vaccine or we are guinea pigs? We don't know. What are our governments doing about it? Very little. A few months ago, we have another vaccine for malaria, which was tested in Kenya. Do we know whether it's a vaccine or we are guinea pigs? We do not know. That is in the area of disease. We are talking about curriculum development. In the East African region, we said we were going to harmonize education. I now want you to look at the curriculum in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Somalia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. They are as far from each other as the North is from the South. We are not harmonizing education, yet we say that we want to solve the problems of Africa. You young people, you are living at a time when it is the best of times and the worst of times. It depends on what you do about it. And the mind is what is going to help us resolve this problem. It gladdens my heart that nearly 22 countries are represented here.
So what Professor Lumumba is saying actually is not new to Africa. Okay? So the message is as clear as he has said it, that we as Africans, we are prone of talking without implementing what you are saying. He has given out a perfect example. We had the Lagos Plan of Action. That was in 1980. And the main issue when we talk about Lagos Plan of Action, they wanted to remove the so-called tariffs and non-tariffs barriers, which were a hindrance to African trade. We also had the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Okay? So those are some of the things that they were there back then. Even, in fact, the leaders of those days, they were speaking things that we are speaking right now. Meaning that indeed 50 years after independence of most African countries, we are still dealing with the basics. So the question is simple. Where are we failing, we as Africans? And permit me to say this because we are prone of lamenting too much and actually accusing the West for what they are doing to Africa. We are prone to that. But I don't buy into that idea because colonizers, they were in Africa 50 years ago. They were in Africa 50 years ago. Okay? So you can imagine up to now, we are still blaming the colonizers for the problems that we are facing, we as Africans. I don't think we're doing justice to ourselves. Why am I saying so? We have countries that 50 years ago, some of African countries, they were even doing better than them 50 years ago. Talk about countries like South Korea, Vietnam. After experiencing the Vietnamese War, they have emerged to be one of the countries that the world is respecting. Why? Because they have good leaders. Chinua Achebe of Nigeria was eloquent and perfectly executed this statement. Chinua Achebe said that the problem with Nigeria, and this context I am referring to the problem with Africa, that the problem with Nigeria, problem with Africa is simply and squarely one of leadership. Simple. That we are electing men and women into office, men and women who are not able to catapult this continent to another level, possibly because they have their own reasons. Okay? They have their own reasons. They are into office to make sure that they are growing fat. And I'm using that term metaphorically, that they are growing fat, looting public properties on an industrial scale. They are there for the benefit of themselves and their families. So they don't buy into this idea of taking Africa as a continent to another level. So it is incumbent of us, we as the Africans, we as the electorates, to make sure that we are electing people into office, people who love this continent and people who love this country. That is what Professor Lumumba is speaking about. And I am glad because a good number of African countries, they are realizing this. Talk about Rwanda, for example. Rwanda has emerged to be one of the best places to visit. Its economy is doing good, and it is just 30 years after the so-called genocide in Rwanda. If you go to Kigali, Kigali has really transformed. Go to the Sahel region. Although we have some conflict in the Sahel region, but go there and see what people are doing. The leaders in the Sahel region, talk about President of Burkina Faso, that is President Traoré. Talk about Assimi Goïta, talk about President Chiani. So they are coming together to make sure the region is catapulted to another level in matters development. Go to Burkina Faso, President Duma Boko is doing good job. Go to Ghana, the president of Ghana, President John Dramani Mahama is doing good job. So we as Africans, we have to blame ourselves. We don't need to blame the West. That is what Professor Lumumba is saying. Let us elect people into office, people who have that will, people who have the ability to serve, and people who love this continent. I spoke to one of my friends and he was telling me this. Something funny with Africans is they know who is a good leader, but they keep electing that bad leader into office. Why? Possibly because the bad leader is fat in terms of finances. And this good leader does not have that financial might, but he is a good leader. But we are not electing this person into office because this person has not does not have anything to offer to the electorate, to bribe the electorate. So the cycle keep on repeating and repeating and repeating itself. So it is incumbent of us, we as the current generation, to make sure that people who we are electing into office, they are people of substance and the people who are able to catapult this continent to another level. So thank you for joining. If it is your first time here, subscribe to this channel and see you next time. Bye bye for now.